everyone, I'm Haley, the designer of the black ribbon, and today I'm going to show you how to sew the new head bows that we're including in all of your orders over $25 while we're practicing our social distancing. So let's get started. So if you're interested in making your own out of your own materials, if you don't have one of these kits, we're also going to show you how to do that today. So I've got these pieces here, and I'm going to put up the measurements on the screen for you so that you guys can do this and follow along yourself. We've got the middle part, the small section of the bow, and the large section of the bow. What's important here to note is the grain line. So this is like if there's a print, which I thankfully have one. You want to kind of up and down. So this will be this part of the bow when we're done here. This will be in the middle, like that. So making sure you have these grain lines marked out for yourself is really important. And the other thing that's really important is I went ahead and did these notches, and again, if you have your own kit, these notches will be already cut out for you. But if you were to fold this in half and center it, it's a 1-inch gap that you're going to be leaving later on. So 1 inch. And then same guy on this guy, 1 inch. And then I also put notches on this side, which I believe was, let me grab my ruler. This is the big section, yeah, 2 inches from the edge here. This is technically going to be your center back seam. 2 inches from each edge. This is going to be your lace placement on both of these guys. So, just so you know, those notches are going to become important. You'll see why when we get to it. So I'm going to cut these sections out real quick out of some Hawaiian shirt fabric that we have here. I'm going to stand up for a second here. I'm going to use a rotary cutter, but you can just use regular scissors to cut things out, guys. It doesn't matter. Again, grain line's important. I'm trying to keep the print centered. I'll succeed at that. So there's one piece. This is our middle bow section. Stick it over there. And this is our small section. What is underneath here? Oh, an alligator clip. Useful for later, but not for now. Out. And cut those notches that we talked about in. Again, you can do all of this with scissors. That's easier for you. And this is going to be our last piece. I'm just trying to center this print. And again, if I'm cutting these out for you guys, I'll be doing all that hard work for you. I apologize if you guys end up hearing a little rustling or some other noises, background noises. There's some street noise. I say that as a motorcycle drives by. I live on a very busy street, so you're just gonna hear people driving by. Oh, I forgot to do my notches. Important. So again, this is our 1-inch space notch in the back. And this is our lace placement notch, importante. Okay, so that's all of our pattern pieces, and again, this would be included if you got one of our kits. So I'm gonna take these scraps out of here, set that aside. Goodbye. Eat. Goodbye. Okay. And then your kit will also include some pieces of lace. You'll see what those are for in a second. So we're gonna start with the big section. And just so you guys can kind of get a visual on how this is gonna work, what we're doing is we're gonna create a seam in the back here. That's gonna be that guy. This is also gonna get a seam in the back. So that'll be that guy. And this guy's gonna wrap around the middle. This will be also, again, folded, the seam in the back. You'll see it'll come together. Okay, so we're gonna start, like I said, with the big guy. And one thing I'm gonna do, just for the benefit of those of you who don't maybe sew very often, two things. I'm going to sew in a contrast thread instead of using pink thread. Obviously, if you have pink thread or whatever matching color, it's best. I'm just gonna make sure I'm using a nice contrasting thread so you guys can really see what I'm doing. And also, I'm gonna go ahead and mark the seam allowances. Again, if you have a sewing machine, you can do this with a sewing machine, and there's usually like lovely little guidelines. If you're doing this with just hand sewing, it kind of can be hard if you're not used to doing, like you can't eyeball a 1/4 inch. I don't blame you. So I'm just gonna take a quick ruler moment here and just mark 1/4 inch seam allowances all the way around. Just to make it a little easier. And all of this stuff has 1/4 inch seam allowance included in it. Okay, so there's our seam allowance marked out. And I'm just gonna make sure our notches, yep, they're nice and visible there. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some lace, and we're gonna essentially cut it to fit in between these notches here. I already cut one piece, but essentially, what we're gonna do is stitch this down between these notches. Now I cut this, I think this width is 3.5 inches. I cut this at 4.5 so I could go ahead and like fold these guys under and iron these guys down real quick, which I'm gonna do. But then it fits nicely within those notches, so I'm gonna do that real quick. Grab my iron, just off camera, excuse me. Okay, so, and just to kind of help you kind of figure out why I'm doing the folded side up, like when we turn this right side out, we kind of want that situation going down. We don't want these facing the wrong way. If I were to do it with the folds this way, and you flip it over, that'd be the wrong way. So I'm gonna pick that, and we're gonna grab some pins real quick. We're just gonna pin it between those notches. Now we're gonna do a running stitch, and I'll show you guys how to do that. First, I'm gonna grab some thread and a needle. Thread up a needle. For those of you who've never really sewn before, usually you can do a single thread or a double thread. I'm going to do double thread for this whole thing. And just take it, wrap it around 2 fingers, and just pull it through a couple times. I get really fast with that. That's just me slowing down to show you how to do it. And you want to trim off that tail, but you still have that knot. And then, if you want, you can kind of hold it up to the light. You'll be able to see that this white edge, this little strip here, is just, if you're holding it up to the light, on the outside of this line. So I'm going to do, a little running stitch If you're unsure of your stitching, you can check on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm pretty comfortable with how knowing where 1/4 inch is for me. So I'm just gonna go to town on this side of the fabric. Sorry, just gotta place that guy. Just get one stitch in real quick. And then once you do that, so a running stitch is where you go in and out, in and out. And I'm just gonna show you how beginners sew, which is totally fine. You go, some people will go in and pull from the back side. It's actually really inefficient, guys. What you want to be doing, let me get back to the right side here. Is to take your needle, dip it, and then kind of like create like a little wrinkle, like a little pinch of fabric, and then you can just stab it through, if that makes sense. So you don't ever have to go to the back side of the fabric. And you can do that in multiple stitches. I just did one, but you could do in and out, in and out, in and out. Like that was 3 or 4 stitches at once. And I'll show you the wrong side of the fabric in a minute here. Just go in and out. This would be considered kind of basting, not like a turkey, although it is spelled the same. Basting your lace on. Now to tie a knot, this is the way that I do it. I start a stitch and then I wrap the needle, the pointy end, a couple times, and then I just finish the stitch. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's just trim that off. Goodbye. Take my pins out. We'll check out the other side. So this is the right side of the project. This is the wrong side. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that pencil line. Hopefully my stitches are pretty close to the edge. I'm doing pretty good. And then when this will be turned right side out, that'll be how that looks. Nice and clean. All right. I should have probably stitched these guys down a little harder, but we'll do that on the other side a little neater. Again, I'm gonna go iron this real quick. Get my nice edges. Peel back. Okie, I gotta start a new knot. This lace in. Sorry if I'm jostling the camera a little bit. It is attached to table edge, so that's about a 1/4 inch in. Again, I'm used to eyeballing these things. Feel free to grab your ruler and measure. And again, I'm just measuring up to my notches right here. Right here, I'm just lining it up. Oops. Pinning takes practice too, guys. I often don't pin my projects. If this was on the sewing machine, I wouldn't, but hand sewing can get away from you a little bit, so. Again, just gonna start stitching this guy. I like to sew like kind of one small stitch. Get started. That crow is right outside my window. My goodness. I said I would stitch this end bits down a little more cleanly than I did last time, so I'm trying to do that now. Make it look pretty. I'm gonna go through all this effort of hand sewing something. It should look good, right? Another pro tip, if you have the chance to do so and if you have the materials, it's always nice to wax your thread. What I mean when I say that, I actually mean beeswax. For some reason you have beeswax laying around, maybe you have it for furniture polish, or maybe you have it for any number of reasons, even like a beeswax candle. If you run your thread through some wax, it'll smooth it out so it doesn't knot up on itself so much. So that's a pro tip that I'm not following. And then what you want to do after you like drag it through the wax and it gets sticky and gross kind of, you iron it and it melts into the thread itself. So that's always a nice thing to do when you're trying to do a little hand sewing, a little extra care. Okay, I'm gonna knot this off. Boop. Alrighty, that is my prep stage. It's pretty good. Alright. Next, I'm going to get a new piece of thread because that got a little short on me. Again. Take it, wrap around 2 fingers. I actually tend to roll it through my fingers, but I'm again trying to slow down to show you guys how I do these things. Turn that off. Now, the easier part, because we have our seam allowance drawn on here, handily enough, we're going to do a running stitch. And the smaller your stitches are, the better out this is going to turn out. So if you can, keep them nice and small and neat. Do a running stitch along your seam allowance. This is technically the back of the bow. And you've got those notches on this edge. And that is going to be where we stop sewing. You can tell I don't do a ton of hand sewing of this sort. I tend to do things like fell stitches, and I'll do some like embroidery and buttonholes, but running stitches are not my forte anymore. It's kind of funny. You'd think they'd be easy. You don't want to over tighten, because if you do, you'll end up gathering, as you can see that did there. But let's just gently smooth that out. Just kidding. Oh boy! Fire truck. Seriously, a very busy road. That's where I live. Okay. And then we'll tie this knot off too. And the reason I stopped there is that notch. Ooh, I tightened that up a little bit. I don't want to do that. Be gentle. Oop. So you can see that notch right there. So I sewed to that notch. We're going to do the same thing on this side, sew to the notch. Get out of here, loose threads. If you ever wonder why I don't really sew in Lolita, it's because you end up with so many loose threads, and then you have like all this volume and fluff that it can just get trapped in your petticoats, your sleeves, your full skirt. Yeah, I tend not to sew in Lolita myself. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do, but I sew so often that it's kind of cumbersome, so not my personal favorite, which is why I'm just in leggings and a t-shirt today. So again, running stitch right on your seam allowance. Oopsie. right until we get to that next notch, and then we're gonna stop again. And then we're gonna take a second to iron. Kind of really important to have an iron handy if you're doing some sewing. You don't, I guess it's not necessarily like required, but it kind of really is one of those finishing touches that really makes things look nice, neat, and professional. Alright, so again, start stitch and tie it off. Alrighty. And then what I'm going to do to iron this is, like I said, this is the back of the bow, so I'm going to center this. And those notches for the lace will really help that. I like how this thread's trying to be attached, but it's not. We're going to press this open, and I'm going to try and bring my iron into view. We're going to try to do that. It's kind of in an awkward place, but we're going to try. So I've got a sleeve board here. Hopefully I can grab my iron. Kind of, there. Hello, this is my iron. I hope you can see it well. I don't think this is a very safe thing to do, but, so, just so you know, what we're gonna do is we're gonna open the seam, and we're gonna press it. I'm gonna go do this off screen, because I don't think it's safe to do that, but, just so you see what we're doing really quick, okay? Do that over here. Where it's safe. That's not safe. Please iron safely. Okay, should be nice and flattened out. So this is what you should be left with. It should have pressed almost exactly on those little notches. What we had, yeah, look at that, looking good. All right, so nice and smushy, flat. The next thing we're gonna do is these are the ends, we're gonna sew those ends down. And again, just right on the seam allowance. So I still have some good matte thread here, so I'm gonna go ahead and use this. Don't need to cut some thread yet. I like to stand while I'm sewing because it's hard, but I know I'm a little out of frame if I do that, so. And again, small stitches if you can, guys. The smaller you get, the better this is going to come out. Obviously, if you're doing this with a machine, you're going to have much neater, smaller stitch lengths, so don't even worry about it. The assembly is the same, except for you're just sewing without having to worry about drawing on your seam allowances, because you'll have a guide. So when you get your thread knotted, what happens is usually that one thread gets a little bit longer than the other, so make sure you just straighten that out real quick. Wow. Also it twists. Being rude. So rude. And you'll probably stab yourself a couple times. It's all very normal as you're getting used to this. Another tip is a thinner needle actually sews better because it doesn't have as much surface area to penetrate the fabric. It's really complicated and scientific, I know, but I actually prefer to use beading needles almost. My normal needle that I sew with for hand sewing, I'm going to try and find one. This is a magnetic, here we go, a magnetic pin cushion. So I don't know if you can see, well, you should be able to, oops, the difference in thickness between these needles. The one I usually use is about maybe half the thickness is the one I'm using right now. Oh my gosh, motorcycles. Sorry about that. so it's a little harder to sew with actually. So if you are capable of sewing with a thinner needle, go for it. It usually comes out a little easier, a little better, a little neater. I think it's a number 10 beading needle, 10 or 12, I can't remember. One of those is smaller. I want to say the bigger the gauge, the smaller the needle. I think she said uncertainly. Alright, that's one edge. I'm gonna do the other. I still think I have the thread to the other side, so I'm gonna keep this. Oh my goodness, a car alarm even. I should be so lucky. There is literally nothing for it. I live across the street from a grocery store, so it's still open. I also live on one of the busiest streets, so it's just, it's a lot happening, even though we're on lockdown. That's alright. I'm staying in here, thank you. Probably the hardest part right here with this lace. Everything else after this is gonna be pretty dang simple. And again, if the lace you find to be very difficult and something you can't do, leave it off. It's not essential to this project by any means. I'm gonna close this door really quick so I don't have all these household noises coming through. One second. Sorry about that, guys. So, okay, important part, next. We left this gap open, right? That is so that we can flip this thing right side out. And of course, I left a very handy tool that most households have, and all. A chopstick somewhere. I gotta go find that. Anyways, so you're just gonna flip this guy right side out through that hole that we left in the back. That ever so important 1-inch notch hole. And then you need to iron this guy because he's gonna be wrinkly. He's gonna be a wrinkle pile when you're done. Alright. Alright. So there's your lace that you carefully sewed on earlier. Looking real cute, real good. That. Let's get the other side out of there. Looking so nice and clean, guys, with your hand stitches. I believe in you. Bet yours looks prettier than mine. Okay, so now I'm gonna iron this. Ooh. Make it look real good. One second. Okay, that is the back of the bow. Nice and ironed flat. Now you can, if you'd like, whip stitch this closed. That's optional. I'm going to show you how real quick. I'm not going to do it on the next part because it's unnecessary because all of this is going to get covered up by that middle section in a minute. And because it's nice and like ironed flat, it's not going to stick out and fray. It's fine. But some people are perfectionists. Some people really like to feel like they did every little thing, so I'm gonna show you how to do that real quick. Oops. Fun fact, whip stitch is one of the stitches you can use for sutures. If you ever gotta sew someone up, let's hope we don't have to do that. So, whip stitch. First off, you want to make sure you're not stitching through your back, so we're just going to make it look like a little pillow. Take your needle, stick it straight through this very thin edge. You're going to stitch right along the edge here. You're just going to go through both layers. And it's just going to kind of create a little diagonal situation with each stitch you do. And you can see how this could just be used to hold two things together, which is why they use it for sutures sometimes. Again, completely unnecessary for this project, but if you want to, you can. We will be using a whip stitch again anyways later in this project, so it's nice to get some practice in. And again, I'm using contrasting threads so you can really see what we're doing. If you did this in pink, you really wouldn't see that much. But there you are. There's your little whip stitch section. Oh, I guess like that knot did not go particularly tight. Hello. Hello, little knot. There we go. Tighten up. There we go. All right, next. So on this one, we should just have the notches, which is totally fine. So we're going to sew, again, let's mark our seam allowances. Grab a pencil, 1/4 inch seam allowance for everyone. Makes it easy. Also see how I didn't cut that very evenly. My bad. Word. Okay. That. So this should be pretty quick. No lace to futz with on this guy. Somebody's messaging me. Okay. Slow on this part because you guys should have had some tutorial time on how to do a good running stitch. Go. Put that off there. Because I'm right-handed, I tend to sew from right to left. Please feel free to do it the other way if you are left-handed. You will find that it's much easier. pretty proud of that, thanks. Like I said, I don't do running stitches very often, so it's more like, oh, I'm finally getting into the swing of it. Alright, so that's that off. And again, I'm going to iron it. This guy doesn't have any notches to really guide you, but you can eyeball the middle. It's fine. This doesn't need to be as specific because it doesn't have this lace that you're trying to like make look cute. So I'm going to iron this and then iron this guy open like we did with the other one. Okay, be right back for that. Okay, back. And now we're just going to sew these edges here. Get myself some new thread. Can you believe that we are like already halfway through this project? It's really not a very complicated one, guys. I have full faith and belief in all of you out there. This next part's going to be really funny because you will definitely be able to see my stitches. You should totally pick a thread color that matches the lace trim you're using on this next part. When we get there, you'll see why, but it's going to be funny. That's alright. My fingers are gonna be sore when I'm done with this. I can't stitch this very much anymore. And it shows. Okay. Tie that guy off. Do the other side. Oh my gosh. Seasonal allergies, man. Baby knows. There's so much dust and pollen. I have this really amazing tree, but I say amazing in that I don't know when it blooms and when it doesn't bloom, but it seems to always be blooming. And I am highly allergic to it, and it's not on my property. It is on my neighbor's property, and I hate it. I hate it so much. It makes me sneeze all the time. I'm trying very hard not to right this second. But it is literally, well, they had to cut it back because I think our landlord told them to eventually, but it was like overhanging our property and just dumping these little tiny yellow flowers all over the front steps, and I would have to go sweep them up just so they would stop getting tracked in the house. And every time I would go do that, it would be crazy allergy time. Sorry if I'm not quite sewing right on camera. It's nice to have it close to your body. I'll try and fix that though. Oh, I got a knot in my thread. It's not cute when you do that. Alright, there we go. And just a little bit more. And then we flip this guy right side out. And we'll be 2/3 done. Boop. And again, you can do all this with the sewing machine if you have one, you know how to use it. I just wanted to make sure I showed you how to do it by hand. For those of you who are trapped, maybe don't have a sewing machine, maybe your sewing machine isn't working right now, which would be very disappointing. If it were me, I would be so upset. Oh my goodness, I don't want to think about that. Luckily I have most tools to fix mine. The blessings of using an industrial is it's pretty simple, straightforward machine. So I'm looking for a chopstick because it's going to be easy to poke these corners out. So let me grab one. A handy dandy sewing tool, which nobody probably told you, for turning your corners right side out. Boop, boop, boop. My goodness. Go. A little ironing action again, so we can smooth that guy out. This corner didn't get quite poked out as neatly as it could have. It's probably to do with my stitching, less to do with anything else. Okay, so as you can see, these are my bow sections so far. Sorry, I'm a little off camera. I'm coming back, I swear. Alright, this is the part where I was saying you really should use a matching color of thread. So this is a galloon lace, which would be a lace that has, kind of doesn't have like a scallop edge. It has kind of a finished edge on both sides. So we're just going to center this, and if you can't visually center it, I recommend taking it, ironing it once, making a nice middle crease for yourself, and placing the lace right on the middle crease. Just going to turn this guy off. Boop. And we're just going to run a running stitch on either side of this lace. I'm just going to pin this down so we can easily do that. Again, this is going to look really goofy with the black thread, but I want you guys to be able to see all parts of this project. Sorry. So pardon how bad that's going to look. Please match your thread to your lace. If not, skip this section. You don't have to have lace on the middle part of the bow. It's an optional feature. I am including little bits of lace with all of our projects just because I have tons of like little small pieces that are too small for me to use on garments, but they're great for things like these kind of projects. So I've been holding on to them for something. Finally have a good use for them. I'm glad. Okay. Goodness. So we're just going to stitch this out on either side. Again, this is just a basting stitch. It doesn't need to be very small. You just want this to hold this lace on. The more important part is that you're actually catching the lace. What I'm going to try and do is kind of hide some of my stitches on the what we call the back side. You don't really need to see them. So let's just stitch through this part of the lace. They're kind of smaller on the front and bigger on the back. It's kind of almost what we call a pick stitch. Not quite though. Do, 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 do. And if you get slightly off center, it's fine. We'll be able to mitigate that to some degree. Sorry, sewing through lace in like the thicker parts can be kind of hard. Not imagining that. It's a lot of thread to push your needle through. Hello, can you not make that kind of knot there? Thank you, really nice. There we go. Like I'm just trying to sew this lace on, please stop. And again, this is completely ornamental. You do not have to do this part where you're putting this lace on. You really don't. If it's too fussy for you, feel free to leave it off. I'm not even going to bother to knot off in the end. I'm just going to make a big wide stitch and come back down the other side. You just want to have this lace holding on nice and neat. Again, please pick a matching thread color for this particular part, or it's going to be painfully obvious. Oops. Go. Okay. We did it. We made lace on there. So as you can see, you can still see my stitches. There's nothing you can do about that. They are smaller on the front side than they are on the back, but that's what you get when you use black thread on a white lace sewing project. It's just only so much you're going to be able to do about that. And again, should have done this beforehand, but that's fine. I'm going to mark my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Really only need to do it on the sides and one end. We're going to leave one end open on this. It's totally okay. It doesn't have to be super straight. It's fine. So now we're going to sew these ends together. This guy. Gonna get some thread. Boop. Hope it's coming out for you guys. And the nice thing about hand stitches is they come out really easily, so if you goof up, you can take them out so quick and redo it. It's fine. So don't feel discouraged. Machine sewing takes a lot longer to unpick. It's actually kind of frustrating comparatively. So there is that advantage to you guys who are doing this as a home project goes. So this fabric kind of has like an up and down a little bit. So this way will be up. So when I go to wrap this way, so I want this guy to be the end that I end up finishing for what that's worth. We'll get there eventually. What I mean when I say that. See how I marked the seam allowance? I want to leave this bottom end open. You'll see. But that is worth noting that if there is an up and down like a directional print, you want to close the end that's the top of the print. So again, just going to do a quick running stitch. That lace is kind of bulky, kind of making it a little hard to get started here, but we got this. We got this. Extra thread. Don't need that, but I have it now. All right, there we go. Again, small stitches if you can. Practice makes perfect. And it will make your job look a lot neater and more professional if you can do it. But don't feel bad if you can't. That all comes with practice, not a skill situation. No one's questioning your skill level. This is a little project for you to enjoy. No stress. And hey, if it doesn't come out, that's okay. You can blame me. Say that I'm a terrible teacher, that I didn't cut them out right. All of those things. It's a legitimate criticism and critique, and I will take full blame for your project not coming out. I definitely did it wrong. It was me. Okie dokie. Once I finish this up, you know what that means, guys. We gotta iron it and press the seam open. Oh yeah. Okay. Boop. Alright, so now we're going to leave this guy flat and press this seam open. Alrighty. And then we're going to stitch this end, the top end, closed. Yeah, this whole project can be completely done without lace at all. You can just have a cute bow that has no lace on it. Totally an option. If the lace stuff stresses you out, don't do it. Omit it. Get straight into the sewing part where it makes make a bow happen. Who needs trim? That's frilly stuff and nonsense, right guys? You can't really do my in and out trick when you're sewing through lace. It doesn't really work that well, so. Actually sewed all the way to the back and back to the front. Okay. There's my end is finished. And you know what's gonna happen next. We're gonna flip this guy right side out. So you kind of take it, open it up a little bit so you got some room there. It's really where you need a chopstick. You could use a pencil, you could even use a screwdriver if you had to. It takes a couple tries. So you just kind of want to get it started if you can. A little bit. Having nails really helps. There you go. Alright. And we got this guy right side out. Alrighty then. So that's all of our components. And you say, well, what's next? So, now you can have two choices. You can have a bow that's like perfectly centered, or you can have one that's like a little bit, like has one part that's a little higher up than the other. Up to you. And you can even put like a little bit higher up if you want to. Like you could use this bow to, there you go. You can see how that works out. So I'm going to go for a slightly higher offset, as you can see how that's going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch down, I'm going to get a pretty hefty thread, I think. A little bit more than that, guys. Weenie thread. A quantity of thread. Just, you know, the normal amount that you would use. That guy would have been used a little bit, so we're going to get some fresh thread. Alright. That's plenty. More than enough. Just great. Alright. Now, if you are not good at eyeballing stuff and you are concerned, you can measure this. I think it is something like 5/8 of an inch. Yeah, 5/8 of an inch to either side of this guy if you want to make sure that part's centered. Or again, you could always just iron each of these things in half and make yourself a nice handy dandy crease line. And you can line up your two creases. That is also an easy option. Feel free to do that. Ta-da! Your creases match. Good job, you. High five. So now, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna do a quick, really big, lazy running stitch. And again, I didn't close off the back of this one because, like I said, I don't feel like it's necessary. You are welcome to do that if it feels undone to you, like if it feels unfinished. You are more than welcome to be a completionist. I don't think it matters, but up to you. Alright, so we got a couple stitches in here. Now, I'm going to kind of use those to kind of grab this together, as you can see. Kind of starts making its own little scrunchiness. And then I'm just going to wrap around. I know, it's so simple. Why not? Why not do this? Again, please pick a matching thread color. Don't have a crazy contrasting black thread. Just wrap it around several times. And then you want to straighten your bow out, kind of just pull on each edge. Kind of make sure it's nice and centered. Guys, it looks like a bow almost. That's so crazy. Alright, and then just take this and tie this off somehow. Whatever way, not situation. Oops, works for you. Well, I guess that has to work for me. It's fine. We're also going to tack this down, but that's just nice to hold that in place. Alright. So we have achieved a form of bow. Next up is going to be making it finished. again, if you're, oh, we didn't even iron this. We need to iron this. I pulled it in right side out. I totally skipped the ironing section. Hello, that is very important. Let's go make this not look like a little wrinkled worm. I got so excited about how this almost looks finished. Okay. So, I'm gonna do a little measuring because this could be a little too long, and that's okay. We can always trim it up. So what you want to do is kind of start your open end. Let's trim off this extra lace, by the way. Bye bye. You don't need to be here. You want to start that like right at the very top of the back, and then wrap it around. And this should finish kind of like in the middle. See how this is a little bit long? We're gonna trim this off, and don't worry about your stitches. Well, we're gonna tack this down. It's gonna be okay. So top. Wrap this around. Looks like we're about maybe an inch off. It depends on the fabric if this is going to be too long or not. But each one of these squares in this grid is an inch, so I'm just going to take advantage of that. Oop. Alright, so let's try that again. Oops, sorry, this way. Line that up, wrap it around. Oh, look, that's about right. Perfect. Be the front. You guys look so good. Your bows look fantastic. I already know they do. I don't even have to be there. I believe in you. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, take your needle and thread. Sorry, I should sit down instead of just being like, would you like to talk to my rib cage? Sorry. This table is at a slightly odd height for working seated. It's my standing table that I use to cut, so it's a little odd. Alright, so you're just going to take your needle and thread, quick running stitch, and you're stitching this to the bow part as centered as you can. You've almost got this finished, you guys. It's come out so nicely. I already know it has. Alright, and you can just go ahead and knot that off. Like I said, you can't even really see your whip stitch section back here. It's really, like I said, that's going to get covered up. So that's why I don't really usually bother with it. But again, if you feel like that's something you want to do, totally support that. Alright, so there's that stitched on there. And now we're just going to take it, wrap it around. And then I usually take a pin to hold this guy down so I'm not struggling. Whoop. Why are you like this? There we go. Alright, that's the back. And remember how I showed you how to whip stitch earlier? I said we'd come back to it, it would be useful. I meant it. I wouldn't lie to you like that. Just going to whip stitch that down, and then your bow's pretty much done. You can slide this guy on a headband if that's more your speed. I'm just going to slide a alligator clip through, and you can choose to hot glue that on if you would rather, or you can stitch the alligator clip in. Not really a big fan of doing that. I do it on my finished products because, like, you know, I want to have that professional touch. But if I was just doing it for myself, I wouldn't bother. It's okay not to. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm catching all the layers of the middle section. It doesn't have to stitch to the bow itself, but you're making sure you're getting through all the sections of the middle. Alright, I'm gonna get that started. Gonna stitch that around the edge once. Cool. Why are you like this? Thank you. Okay, and now we're just gonna whip, stitch, and make sure you're catching again the middle section of the bow and the edge. Oh my god, this lace is so thick to sew through. I wish I had my thimble handy. Oops, go away, thank you. This would look so much neater if I had done it in matching thread colors. I swear it's true. Okay. So that took like what, 4 stitches? Not that bad. Alright, and then just finish it. Another middle knot. Trim, take out your pin, flip it over, and oh my goodness, you have a beautiful bow. That is some loose thread on this lace. Goodbye. Yeah, honestly, if it weren't for that black lace right there, this is perfectly good looking. I'm real proud of all of us. And your kit will include a handy dandy gaiter clip. Just slide that guy in the bottom. Hold on, I got this a little bulky. Oh my gosh, this lace is so bulky under here. Sorry. There you go. Slide it in, and there's your clip. That's for your head. Or my head. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had fun sewing along with me. I hope it's something you guys can get some use out of, make your own bows, find some other fabrics to do this out of. Again, don't need the lace sections at all if you don't want to. You could even put lace here and just, you know, mark a line and sew that down. Again, this is way easier with a sewing machine, but I wanted to make sure that anybody could do this. All you need is a needle and thread, and even your drugstores, if you have to go out for any reason, they usually have like a little hand sewing kit. We are going to include needle and thread though, for those of you who don't have that. But scissors are things you're probably going to have. And if you have a chopstick, it obviously helps. Iron is important. And if you have questions, feel free to DM me. I'm trying to be around. I'm not really going anywhere, and neither should you. But thank you guys so much, and thanks so much for your continued support. I hope you guys are doing okay. We care about you, and we appreciate how much you guys care about us. I hope everyone has a great week, and let's get through this together, guys. I'll see you later. Thanks.